Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name's Dave Lundahl. I'm happy to be co-presenting today with Kate Hamilton on the subject of concept creation for the greater good. And today we're going to be discussing how to apply behavioral research to elevate concept creation as kind of the front end of your innovation process for the greater good. And what I mean by innovation for the greater good is the application of behavioral research to inspire, foster, and guide innovation, leading to, I think, what everybody wants, a cleaner, healthier, happier world. And so for those that may not know myself, I'm Dave Lundahl. I'm the CEO for InsightsNow. I am really passionate about changing the world through innovation because I believe through innovation, we can achieve a cleaner, healthier, happier place to be. And I'm passionate about applying behavioral research techniques. So this subject today is something that I am really excited about presenting to all of you. So Kate?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Kate Hamilton. As the director of our Innovation Center, I'm really excited to share this platform with you today and to help teams with concepting and new product development initiatives. And honestly, it's always a pleasure to present with Dave because I learn something new every single time we do this process. And I really hope that's true for our audience today as well.
Great. Yep, and you see us on the slides. Now, if you are new to InsightsNow, and I think some of you, I believe, that are connecting in here are new, we'll go through a little bit about that. But before that, Kate, take it away and talk about do some housekeeping here.
Yeah, absolutely. So right here is just a little reminder about how to participate with us during our webinar sessions. We have two different submission boxes for questions or chat that are in the webinar panel. And Shelly is also with us today. So if you're having any technical difficulties, don't feel afraid to reach out and let us know. Also wanted to just do a quick housekeeping that a video replay of this presentation will be available next week. So that will be sent out to everybody who registered.
Great, good. So a little bit about InsightsNow. So our whole mission as an organization is about fostering and inspiring innovation for the greater good. That is, it's all about, creating an opportunity for a cleaner, healthier, happier world. And we're a behavioral market research company. And what I mean by behavioral is we apply neuroscience or behavioral research to try to raise the bar in insights delivery. Now, we do this a number of ways. One is by creating techniques that generate what we call behavioral scores. And we're going to be showcasing some examples of that today, and also some ways to apply these behavioral techniques to generate insights that can help you along the way as you're developing concepts. And so anyways, Kate is going to talk a little bit about the third thing that we do, and that is provide ways for you to access these behavioral scores yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. So neuromarketing and neuroscience might sound like really scary, heavy terminology that must take a really long time to come to life. But InsightsNow honestly really prides ourselves on our speed to results. And one of those ways is through our Innovation Center, where we have 3 centers for discovering, identifying, and finding solutions to research questions that lead to insight sooner. So in our Learning Center, you can download for free thought leadership reports, white papers, videos, and other content about consumer and shopper behavior. In our Scoring Center, we have applications that provide access to our behavioral scores that you can download to understand specific behavioral impacts of claims, ingredients, and other components that can be built into your product designs or concept creation. And our latest launch, the Testing Center, is where we can rapidly design your own semi-custom research for rapid decision-making. And then also available through the Innovation Center is our instant chat feature, where myself or another Insights team is available to help you navigate the platform in real time to help keep your team on track of all of your insight needs. So today's presentation will highlight two features of our platform, one of which is the Scoring Center. This is an area where you can gain immediate access to our databases for identifying behavioral scores for those ingredients, supplements, claims, and benefits to help you all make instant decisions about how to build and position products in ways which will impact behavior the most, which that's what's so important, and that's what's kind of the essence of our neuroscience and neuromarketing technique. These applications provide access to unique consumer behavioral scores, which can be used to generate reports for product developers and marketers to know how to design and develop concepts and products that nudge and disrupt consumer behaviors. And as Dave said, our mission at InsightsNow is about fostering, inspiring, and guiding innovation for the greater good to make a cleaner, healthier, and happier world. The Scoring Center assists teams in establishing those connections to cleaner ingredients and also the right benefit associations to amplify your success in market. The other aspect of the Innovation Center you will see today are various solutions coming from our Testing Center. This is, again, our latest extension to the Insights platform, which we released back in January. So in this section, there are 7 different assisted DIY or semi-custom research executions to help your team along that concepting journey. So not only do these setups provide speed and value, you will also be tapping into our behavioral expertise in each of these project types, which is ensuring that you all are making the best decisions about development truly rooted in consumer behavior. It's not about likes or dislikes at this stage.
Yeah, so today we're going to be focusing on the concepting sort of part of the innovation process. It's the upfront. And in addition, we're going to be working a little bit into the further front end, which is a sprint that we call Find Your Focus. And to do this, I like to start out with a little poll, okay? So Kate, take it away. I will launch this poll for everybody, and we'll go for that. So if everybody could go ahead and please select. What we want to do is, the question is, what inspires and guides and fosters you in your concept creation process? See, about
We're about halfway through the vote.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, really interesting results. Really interesting results. Couple more, if you could vote. Otherwise, we'll close it. Okay, we'll go ahead and close it. And let's take a look at the results. So it looks like what creative ideation by the project team is the prime. About half of you, that's an area of how you do your concepting. About a quarter said consumer insights through focus groups. And then a few of you are doing some co-creating, which is one of the areas that we're going to talk through today. So really, really interesting results. I think it aligns a lot, and it helps us sort of talk about kind of what we knew setting the table is that typically most people get a brief, and often this comes from marketing. This brief is, identifies who are your target consumers, perhaps what is the unmet consumer need, some information about the opportunities, such as what the competitive positioning is, and sometimes what are the key competitors. And then the concept processing, such as using your project team to do creative ideation, is this process of building a lot of ideas, diverging, converging on a few ideas, fashioning those into concepts where you can diverge, you can synthesize, and finally a converging process. And often what we see is a lot of our clients and people that we've seen utilize some sort of internal scoring mechanism in the end to come up with which concepts are best. And this is, some criteria might be used, such as, does it differentiate from the competitive set? Is it technically feasible? Is it financially feasible? Do you have to invest a lot, or is it fit really well within your manufacturing process and your sort of how you bring products to market? So here, you can see this example, one of the concepts stood out from this internal scoring. Now, concept creation 2.0 is much more behavioral, and it applies 4 basic principles of behavioral research that we like to call the 4 C's of concept creation. And it starts with defining what is the behavioral change that consumers and or shoppers must undergo if your innovation is going to be successful, and then working backwards from there. And it goes to heart of concept creation for the greater good. I mean, it is much easier to be able to develop concepts that are aligned with what people are seeking. And today that means cleaner, healthier products that align and bring happiness to people. The second is the context. That is where consumers use and the environment and where consumers are buying products, for that matter. It's a different type of context. For in context is what we call priming. That's where this occurs. And priming is a behavioral sort of construct that really, when we are primed by things in our environment, it makes memories, past memories, accessible. And that brings us into it to have meaning for things that we see, as well as it can provide the underpinnings for motives for approach and avoiding things that we're exposed to. Now, the third is cues. And that can be either product cues that signal implicitly benefits that can become a reward when you've used a product, or it could be environmental cues that trigger routines. And the last of the 4 C's is to co-create with consumers, treating consumers as full participants in the process of concept creation, to dialogue with them rather than treating people as simply respondents. And I see about 15% of you that answered the survey are actually doing some co-creating, which is really cool. So let's delve into this a little bit more. Now, this is what we call the 2.0 process. And it starts with a brief, as in 1.0, and it maps out, first, you map out a behavioral strategy. That is this working backwards process from the behavioral change that you need to impact. And this is followed by concept creation, a process where ideally you use consumers as participants in co-creation. Now, often there's a gap between the behavioral strategy and we'll talk through this in a second more and show you an example of this, a specific case study. But often there's gaps between the questions you're asking and this sort of thinking backwards from the behavioral change and how to do that. And you need to do some behavioral research in the interim to inform your concept creation process. And that's the front end part that I was talking about, which is really important in terms of getting to a concept creation 2.0. So I'm going to go through this step by step, and then in the end, we'll talk about some ways to converge utilizing more behavioral approaches to converging using some behavioral techniques. Okay? All right. So in this case study, it was involved with supporting the Olala brand, and it was done in partnership with International Flavor and Fragrances. And we actually went to Turkey to do this type of research. We had well-defined targets about who the target consumers was. These were Olala brand users in Turkey. They were primary shoppers, about 65% women. And the opportunity they were trying to look at was, as a marketing brief, was to create healthy, indulgent snacking products. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this behavioral approach of working backwards, what does that mean? Well, if you're going to be successful in any kind of new product, you need to change habits. You need to break habits, or if it's a product that you want to, it's a current product in the market and you're just improving it, you don't want to break habits because you're already there as a market leader, but you want to then nudge these habits. And so we utilize this flywheel. Is the faster the flywheel goes round and around, you are creating and reinforcing habits. And so, but when you want to reinforce, you want to make it spin around faster and faster. And the way we do this with this flywheel is the flywheel, we start with what is the routine? And we know that in a routine, that's where people select products, and then we look at the product itself and what qualities have cues that signal benefits that people expect. And then when they use a product, hopefully you get a reward from those where those benefits are realized in actuality. And then to complete the whole cycle is you need to be able to associate the reward with an environmental cue. And this is typically done through advertisement and things like that, so that the cue will trigger the routine again. So the more that you can have all these components with a new product, the better you're going to have a chance to actually foster, to break a routine, break a habit. What you can change the routine. You can provide a product that has benefits that make those old rewards obsolete, and you can change the environment where a product is used, or such that there is no longer a cue to trigger the routine, like being in a different context. So anyways, so in practice, what we do is we take this and we build what we call a behavioral strategy worksheet. And this leads to some key questions about what the change is, what the context is, and what the cues and signals need to be in order to be successful. And these are really important components to build before you get into your concepting. So in the case of the Olala brand, what we found is that, what we wanted to do in terms of the habits is, this is an existing product. We want to create some healthier alternatives. So it's about nudging, not disrupting. Further, we wanted to be able to, we had some questions about the moments. So we know what the moments are. It's basically personal indulgent moments. And the competitive set is any kind of alternatives to healthy snacking. It may not be energy bars or candy bars. It may be something very different. So we found then, thinking through these questions, most of the questions were around what is the definition of healthy indulgence? So alternatively, we got some ways to fill in the gaps. One is we could do ethnography, or we can do store walks to get information. But in this case, what we did is we actually applied something called playful insights. And I want to delve into playful insights, what that is. And this is a great behavioral technique where it puts people into a mindset for play. And it does that by having people play with Legos, because everybody's had, in their example, around the world, everyone's played with Legos as a kid, and some with the adults as well. And so what we do is we have people imagine with their Lego, imagine the future for what healthy indulgent snacking is. And we had people build models with their Legos, and then discuss that as metaphors for what indulgent, healthy snacking is. And what we discovered from this group of consumers, target consumers, this is done in Turkey, as it means freshness, it means social sharing, it means a sensorial experience, it means personal touch or homemade, and it means pure indulgence. These are great qualities that helped us then define what healthy indulgent snacking was for the project team. In addition, Kate's going to step us through some other things we did in terms of behavioral scoring. Go ahead, Kate.
Absolutely. So like Dave was saying, playful insights is just one of the ways that we can develop behavior scoring or behavioral methods or understanding consumer behavior. But at InsightsNow, we've also developed a survey approach to behavioral testing, which adds an additional layer of insight into the time it takes for a consumer to make a decision. So it's time bound. First, implicit is rooted in how fast someone responds, which is an opportunity for a brand to nudge those current behaviors. In our healthy indulgence example, consumers were asked if this concept was healthy. Yes, this is healthy. There's no extraneous time to think about that. Alternatively, explicit is a slow response. So is this good for the planet? No, there's a pause there. Having the explicit slow response is an opportunity to disrupt current behavior and really have consumers think about their choices. So essentially, fast responses elicit an implicit response, which is an opportunity to nudge current consumer behavior, whereas slower responses may be an opportunity for disruption. Understanding how the behavioral scores should be interpreted will provide your team the context they need to interpreting data for maximum insight generation. This is an example of our behavioral scoring guide, where the implicit score is a calculated measure based on the speed, that fast or slow response, and the positive or negative reaction a person has. The score ranges from 0 to 100, where 0 means the attribute is intuitively not experienced, and 100 means it is a completely intuitive connection. So scores above 50 mean there's a positive connection, and scores above 75 mean there's a strong implicit connection. Let me show you how that works in real life. So if you use that guide as a base, here's an example of various ingredients that we have scored through this implicit behavior metric for the benefit association of being healthy. You'll also see that ingredients such as berries and peanuts are in that upper end of the scoring scale. These ingredients will nudge a consumer into the healthy benefit. Scores that fall in the 50 to 60 range are positive connections that have opportunity to disrupt the healthy benefit association, meaning ingredients such as elderflower or pepper in sesame are considered healthy, yet not as intuitively as berries and peanuts, which opens up your concepting options to new opportunities to consider. So see those scores that are below 50? These are people that have negative connections to the ingredients and benefits, and then those below 25 are strongly disassociated with the healthy benefit claim. If you want more information specifically on how our implicit test works, we do have an ebook available for download in our Learning Center that really shows the different applications that are available.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yep. Good point. Yeah, so another sort of technique is claims, because claims are really important pieces of concepts. And so we can apply the same sort of behavioral testing, looking at explicit reactions, how fast people respond, to ask questions about various potential claims in terms of, are they relevant, yes or no? And you get this sort of scatter plot where you can see, like, for instance, verified GMO, high protein. These are very fast responses. People scored really quickly, and they're fairly relevant. So these are really good to nudge. Now, when you disrupt, you see that that locally sourced and high amount omega-3 are two sort of claims that you can make. They're very relevant, and people were much slower to respond. So they are more disruptive. So if you're trying to go to a disrupt, locally sourced, high amount of omega-3 were really good. But in this case, we were trying to nudge. So verified GMO, high protein were really good with this consumer group. Now, these basic principles can lead us to this idea, this information, as to say, into the area of concept creation. Now, typically, as I said, most times concepting is about ideas and then using ideas to build concepts. But what we have found is that platforms are actually a better way to think about in the concepting process. And what I mean by this is platforms are ways that product developers or culinologists, as we worked with in this case, was a better way to form concepts. So what I mean by that is platforms can provide input for thinking about new technologies that can create new sort of types of benefits or rewards in new ways, or new processes, or the application of new ingredients can get you a completely different type of platform. And then within each of these platforms, that provides a platform for creating different concepts. So a much better way to diverge and synthesize and converge in your concepting process rather than looking at ideas used to develop concepts, more structured. Now, in the case of the Olala brand, we only utilized a culinary team to develop a number of alternatives. And but as an alternative to that, we have found with other projects that is often much more helpful to bring in target consumers where you can iterate back and forth to refine your concepts. So we call this a co-creating process. So anyways, we didn't apply it here, but I just want to mention that this is a great technique where you build your concepts and you have then you use the consumer team, and this could be through a one-way mirror on site or could be virtual, to give you feedback on those so you can refine your concepts to get them better. All right, the final step is of these sort of basic principles is the convergence. Now, this leads to the final step in the 2.0 by some different behavioral techniques. Now, there's three ways that we utilize to get to a final concept from whatever group is coming out of your concepting creation process. The first is you can take a much more behavioral approach when you're just doing internal scoring, like in 1.0. And that is by adding, for instance, criteria such as, does it signal healthy, or does it signal indulgent, or is it disruptive, or does it nudge? And these could be additional criteria that add a little more behavioral rigor to your internal sort of team in thinking about going beyond, is it just technically feasible? Is it financially feasible, and so on. Now, beyond that, there's two other behavioral techniques when you actually want to involve consumers to help guide your selection process. And I'm going to go through two of them. The first is what we did with the Olala brand case study. And the other one is something we didn't do because it wasn't really relevant, but it's something that could be relevant for other types of projects. And I'm going to go through a quick case study for a company, some research we did for tofurkey. Okay, so on the first one, in terms of Olala, we applied something called a tournament. And this is a screening approach. It's applicable when you have a lot of concepts to sort through. And what this tournament approach is a choice-based exercise that we have participants go through, and they select from groups of concepts. They have read this group, and they select a winner, and they get another group. They select another winner, another group, and then in the final, for every individual participant, they get to rank their choices for their winners. So do a final ranking of the winners. And what you get from this process, and this is something that actually you can do in our through our idea screening app in the Innovation Center, is that you get this type of input. And in particular, I want you to look at this tournament sort index. This is an index you get from the choice modeling. An index of 100 is average selection. In the case of the Olala project, we paired the current indulge SKU, the one that was currently on the market, with an alternative, healthy, indulgent concept that the culinary team created. And what you can see is that the triple textured dark chocolate and fruit cake bar concept scored at parity with the current product on the market, the chocolate cake bar. In all the other cases, the current product won over the alternative. So in this case, this triple textured is chocolate cake fruit bar product is a good one to move forward to develop some more healthy, indulgent alternatives. Now, as I said, what was not applicable, but this idea of behavioral testing. And where this is applicable is in cases where you have a control and you have a few alternative, very fully developed concepts. And we apply a behavioral testing approach, which is also based on choice. And we did this for the Tofurky brand to help them select a winning concept for a new packaging they're trying to develop for their plant-based alternative meat deli slices product line. And what this choice sort of methodology involves is, again, providing groups of alternatives, in this case, and against the whole category. So we looked at, there were like several different category competitors, and we looked at, first we do a we do something called a max diff exercise, where you pick the best and the worst from each set of 3. And what we do is we do this twice. First, we have the participants do a choice exercise for just the current control against all the category competitors. And then each competitor does one of the 3 alternative choice test concepts against the competitive set. And what you get from this is something called category lift. And this lift is actually taking the max diff score and calculating something called raw lift. And it's done by looking at the max diff rating, which is coming from the data, and looking at, say, for instance, the current concept, the plastic tub lift actually creates this lift metric from 9.6 max diff to 14.1. And that gets you, that ratio of these two gets you a lift metric. And just put this all together, what you're able to do, what we're able to find out here is that the control, the vertical bag, soft tray, or plastic tub, which was the 3 alternative concepts, the soft tray for this group of consumers that we used was able to achieve a 36% lift in terms of increase in max diff, so increase of choice against the whole competitive set, which is a great way to think about which of these alternative concepts is going to have the greatest behavioral impact on the marketplace. Okay, so that's sort of stepping through this. So, you know, how can you do it yourself? Kate's going to kind of step us through kind of a wrap up in what this all means. Kate?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So that Tofurky example is something that I get really excited about because it's super relevant and timely. We just completed that project with the Tofurky team in January, I think it was. So this is something that present day 2021 has immediate business and team implementation aspects. So after we shared our results with their team, Erin Ranson, who is the Senior Vice President for Growth and Innovation at Tofurky, actually gave us her permission to share this quote that really speaks to the speed and delivery and confidence that InsightsNow was able to provide them through this concept scoring application within the Innovation Center. She says the team at InsightsNow quickly queried our audiences to gauge empirical and emotional enthusiasm for several new product concepts. The blended results gave us confidence in a comprehensive prediction for consumer acceptance and helped justify investment in new manufacturing equipment and the development processes. So truly, case in point that this really does have sound business applications with combining, kind of your standard evaluation metrics, but when you lift them with the behavioral scoring and the impact that can have on your development process. So the Tofurky case study specifically used the concept scoring solution from the testing center. But you might have noticed the little breadcrumbs, the little cookie crumbs that we had on a couple of different slides, that we're not limited to just one option in this section of our innovation center. Concepting a new product development has its own life cycle, and all of our solutions assist research and development teams to help them focus budgets and decisions with efficient behavioral research designs. If you need help filling the blanks during your product concepting, you could consider the ideas screening, which can help teams narrow down a large pool of considerations using that tournament exercise that Dave shared with us. And then that concept scoring solution can be used for focusing the development from concept to product based on behavior metrics like category lift, which we just went over. The ingredient benefits and clean label scoring solutions are actually complementary research options for our scoring center databases, and it helps with identifying ingredients and benefits desired for the concept you're making. Once you have a product or potentially multiple variations of a product that are ready for safe consumer testing, we also have a product testing solution available for quick turn in-home testing with our primary shopper category advisors. These are consumers who have been pre-screened for being the decision maker and purchasers for specific categories. And once your concept or product has been refined and before you go to market, we can also assist with behavioral scores and behavioral metrics through our claims testing and message testing solutions, which identify those projected behaviors your team desires based on the different communications and benefits you want to deliver.
Yeah, and I could add that the claims testing and message testing can also be used at the front end before you're concepting to help you fill in some of those gaps in your behavioral strategy.
Yeah, it's absolutely important, Dave, to for sure articulate that we understand innovation is not a linear process like it might feel like it is on this slide. All of these solutions can come in at different points of your innovation and new product life cycle. The point is that we have behavior metrics that are really efficient in data to help your team make more sound business decisions, truly based on drivers of consumer behavior. So I said earlier today, these were not generic like or dislike executions. We truly use our knowledge of different behavioral frameworks and that implicit-explicit test to guide your team to success. If this presentation has made you curious to learn more about the Innovation Center, I highly invite you to come and visit our demo day on March 31st. Just like today's webinar, it is an attendee list that is private, so you'll be comfortable asking questions in a group setting. But if you want something more tailored specifically for your team or want to see some examples of how these solutions can help with your products and your categories, we are happy to set up individual training sessions to optimize this platform.
So, in the end, these 4 C's of concept creation 2.0, really go beyond, this idea of just concepting, utilizing the creative ideation that you have with your project teams. It actually thinks about, what is the behavioral change that you need to impact and working backwards. As I said earlier, the idea of concept creation 2.0 is to focus your innovation on ways that will create the common good, things that will create a cleaner, healthier, happier world, because that is what people are looking for today. And we're especially coming out of this pandemic, we are seeing strong evidence that these sort of trends for more transparency in the ingredients that people see, more healthier alternatives, and things that align with these sort of trying to have a more sustainable world, these are the things that people are seeking. And so we're finding all sorts of opportunities for companies to go along that. Context, cues, co-creation are really the other strong principles of Concept Creation 2.0 that really do make a difference. So with that, thank you so much for your attention today. We're going to have some question and answer time. At this point, you'll see our emails here. If you want to reach out to Kate or myself, we'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have. But at this point, we'd like to get into the Q&A part of it and to address specific questions that you may have. So with that said, I think we've got some questions here currently. I'm trying to look here. So any questions that you may have, you can type them into the chat part that is here on the side. I know there are some comments made about the poll was not check all the above. So I'm sorry about that, but we did get, I think, some good responses from there. Was this pretty clear for all of you in terms of the concept creation process? Does this make sense to take a more behavioral approach? So who do you balance consumer co-creation with internal creation? So it's a balance. So I think the question is about how do you do that? So there's different ways that you can do the co-creation. One is that you can be in the room with your participants, and so you're actually actively with the consumers. We did this as an example. We've done co-creating work with kids. So where the research team are actually active participants, and we had people. We've done times where we do cycles where we take like a packaging expert works directly to help develop packaging components, or we may have someone who's more on the marketing side to think about positioning and work directly, or you have culinary people coming in and actually utilizing early stage prototypes and have people taste and evaluate. So it can be very participatory in that to come up with concepts. Another way, which is more typical, is you actually have the team create concepts as you typically would internally, and then utilize groups as a sounding board to synthesize and to refine and to eliminate things that are not going to be. So it's a very rapid iterative learning process that can go from very simple early stage platforms that have very high level components to much more full-blown concepts as you go through the process. So I hope that answered the question here about how you do it. There's different approaches that tend to fit with different types of design initiatives, innovation initiatives.
Yeah, and Dave, I would add to that as well when it comes to the balance, that as much as you wish your internal teams know everything about your end consumer, they're still not it. You still want to make sure you have a voice of consumer component at some point during the concept and new product development phase to ensure you're actually meeting the expectations. Sometimes internal teams are really, sometimes too close to the process, and they don't actually see how that's transitioning in the consumer's mind or into consumer behavior. So there's for sure a balancing act, and that looks differently for each team. But I think Dave and I would definitely err on the side that at some point you need consumer input before you're going to field.
Right. What Concept Creation 2.0 is an agile process. and is not a cookie cutter process. So if you want to be behavioral, you need to put the work into the front end to really define what your strategy is. And that can really help inform your concept creation process. And then, to co-create, that provides some input from your participants, your target consumers, as well as how you do the back end. You don't always need to bring consumers in if you already have a great co-creation process. You may not need to do a validation on the back end, or in other cases, you may need to bring in the consumers to screen it down or to generate something like a behavioral lift metric. So it's an agile process. It's not cookie cutter, but what we want to do is lay out some different sort of techniques that are very behavioral to change the mindset for how you go about concept co-creation or creation. So, any other questions? Well, super. Well, thank you for your time today, and it was a pleasure to be able to present on this, what is obviously for us a very passionate subject area, an area we would love to to further help the industry out. So if you have any further questions one-on-one, please reach out to us. And with that said, everyone have a great day, and thank you for your attention today. Bye.